What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Brian here, Man in the Barn, vlog number 8. So tonight I want to talk about some things I've been saying I'm going to talk about for a while. Too far to walk, the map. I've got the book here. I said in, I think, vlog number 5 that I believe Too Far to Walk is a map. I don't think it is the map that's in the back, the fold-out map that everybody's familiar with. I don't think this is the treasure map. It says in here that the X marks the spot, but it's there in spirit. However, I do believe this is a map in its own way. For y'all poem purists out there, I'm gonna go ahead and cut this video off. You're not gonna like what I have to say. I kind of mentioned it in one of my other vlogs is, you know, I used all 3 books. I think there's a ton of information in here. I wouldn't call it hints, but because it's not really hints. This purpose of this book is to give you a map to the location of the treasure. So if you're reading this book the way you're reading To the Thrill of the Chase and the poem, you're not going to get anything out of it. If you treat this as a roadmap or an instruction manual for generating a map to the treasure, then I think you'll probably get something out of it once you figure out how to use it. So stick with me. It's going to take me a couple of videos for you to see where I'm going with it. Today I'm going to be talking about one particular thing. I'm going to be talking about bullseyes. It's not going to make much sense to anyone out there, but hopefully after a couple of videos, you're going to see where I'm going with this. So stick with us here. We're going to, go down a rabbit hole. All right. So before I get started talking about bullseyes, I'm going to digress a minute, and I'm going to talk about my time in the Navy and something that I picked up on my job. So I was an operations specialist for 10 years in the Navy between 1995 and 2005. I did 6.5 of those years on the USS San Jacinto out of Norfolk, Virginia. Part of my job as an operations specialist, especially during the sea and anchor portion of the underway, which is whenever you're leaving or entering port, was navigation. So I've kind of set up a mock channel here, if you will. So as a operations specialist, we work down in the radar center, Combat Information Center, CIC. But we did all our things from radars. Quartermasters, their primary job was navigation, but they were up on the bridge and they used visuals. So we would combine that information from the operations down in combat with our radar, and the quartermasters with visuals. We would combine that information. The navigator would coordinate it, correlate it, and then he would use the combination of that information to determine our proper position in the channel so that we did not run aground. So, as I said, this is a representation of a channel. This would be land up here, land, and this would be land here. In combat, what we would see is on our radars, we would see this channel. You could see it pretty clearly, and we would label points. We're calling this Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, and we could use our radar and say, all right, point Bravo is a point on land, and it is 300 yards away. Point Delta is a bridge piling, the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, and it's 800 yards away. And Alpha back here is behind us, and it's 400 yards away. What we would do then is we would have a compass, and we would swing those distances. 400 yards, boom. 300 yards, boom. 800 yards, boom. And we would get across, right? In the center where those crossed, that's where we'd plot our position. What does this have to do with Forrest Fenn's treasure? So if anybody's been paying attention, the last couple of days or last week or so, a lot of articles have been coming out about Forrest Fenn There's nothing really new in them. I think they're just mainly kicker articles, just because the search season's starting again. Hell, I think even one of the video reports I saw, they didn't even pronounce his name right. So I bring that up because I noticed something that I hadn't heard Forrest say before, and maybe he has. And if y'all have, comment below, let me know if y'all have heard him say it. But a line in the article said, "The treasure's out there for the ones who can make the lines cross." Or something to the effect of making the lines cross. The chest is out there for the one who can make the lines cross. I just made the lines cross. But you're saying, Brian, this is a channel. What does that have to do with Forrest Fenn and the treasure? Be right back. Let me switch this up some. All right, we're back. So I've changed my board here a little bit. I've gone from a surface radar projection to an air radar projection. So what we have here is, let's call this land, okay? Any seaboard in any part of the world. And what we have out there is, these are two, let's call them cap stations. Cap stations, for y'all that don't know, are just arbitrary points in space where our fighter pilots go and they just kind of hang out and they wait for tasking for whoever's under their control. That could be an AWACS airplane, that could be a ship, that could be an aircraft carrier, it could be another plane, it could be a P-3. A number of platforms can be controllers. So these aircraft, they go out to their cap station they've been assigned to or ordered to go to. They have a controller that they've been briefed with prior to probably taking off. An hour or two prior to taking off, they've probably met with their controller via the radio, and they've discussed their plan for the hour and a half, 2 hours that they'll be on station, right? So we've got two cap stations, let's call it, waiting for tasking. Part of my job as a operations specialist was I had a air intercept controller, what they call NEC, or special schooling. So I actually did special schooling to control aircraft from a ship. So I'm a shipboard controller. So if Forrest, whenever he was flying his F-100s over Vietnam, he had an air controller. He spoke about his air controller, the one that kind of saved him, the one that kept looking for him. He named him, and I think My War for Me. So his air controller was following his aircraft. He had him under control. He was pointing out targets to him. He was making what we call painting a picture. Our friendly aircraft, they can only see roughly 60 degrees in front of them with their radar. They don't have a radar facing backwards. They don't have a radar facing to the side, unless the new aircraft do. I mean, I've been out of the Navy for 13 years, so things could have advanced. I haven't kept up. I can probably read my Jane's fighting airships, but anyway, at the time, and definitely during Forrest time, they couldn't see. They didn't have the radar, or they couldn't see very little in front of them. So they relied on their controllers to paint their picture. Why is that important? How does that relate? Well, Forrest was a controller. And in order for that controller to point Forrest in the direction of an aircraft or a target that he would like to intercept for whatever reason, he would have to make a bullseye call. So I'm going to set this up for you here. We have two cap stations, and we have some unknown aircraft here that are coming in from land. These cap stations don't see it. They're out here just circling around, right? They're circling around, and maybe when they circle around, their radar might pick it up, but they don't have any tasking. They're not going to do anything with it, right? So they're just waiting for tasking. Either us on the ship, the AWACS controller, his controller in the air, he sees these planes take off over land. He sees them coming out. He's like, all right, I need a VID. I want to get a visual identification on these aircraft. So he calls up 105 Gunslinger VID this target. Well, hey, how does Forrest know where this target's at? He has to make a bullseye call. It doesn't make sense for his, hey, he's bearing 303, 24 miles. 303 from where? 24 miles from what? From this aircraft? From this aircraft? From the controller plane or ship? They set up what's called bullseyes. This is a representation of a bullseye. This is a representation. So, for example, in the Persian Gulf in the 90s, or late 90s, early 2000s, we had about 15 or 20 different bullseyes. They were predetermined spots that we had lat-long positions on, that the airplanes knew, that we could talk to over what we call red communications or unsecure communications. So I could make that bullseye call, make that side number 102, my call sign, gunslinger, VID contact, New York. We call this bullseye New York. VID contact New York. For you, it looks like it's about 045. 045, 24,000. 045 is the bearing, 24 miles, 24,000 feet altitude. That's going to let this aircraft know to immediately look here for a target and go into a visual ID. If we feel New York is compromised, we can immediately switch to another bullseye, call it Dallas, Atlanta. I mean, there was tons of them. So, bullseye calls were a way to identify a target based off another position. Page 89, that might be backwards. Page 89 in Too Far to Walk is our bullseye. I'm going to take you real quick to an article I found online about bullseyes. Ladies and gentlemen, I've explained to you bullseyes. If you have a bullseye for New York and either have a bearing, a range, or bearing and a range, you can make the lines cross. Maybe you have one bearing from New York. Maybe you have one bearing from Atlanta. Maybe you have a distance from Warm Waters Hall. Maybe you have a bearing from, I don't know, 1,600 miles from Temple, Texas. Make the lines cross using bullseyes. What are the bullseyes, do you ask? We'll talk about that in another video. Guys, thanks for tuning in tonight. You might not have thought this was very helpful. All I can say is put it in the back of your mind. I'm going to talk about some other things. We're going to recall this lecture, this lesson, here in a couple of weeks. And hopefully things will start making more sense and maybe start ringing a bell as why I talked about the bullseye and making the lines cross here. Tune in next time. Maybe we'll talk about the difference between 2 square miles and a 2 mile square. Talk to you later.